Rancid Radio. This is Lars Fredrickson. With me today, a very dear friend and a very great guitar player. Her name is Brody. She plays in the Distillers. How you doing today, Brody?
I'm doing good.
Well, first of all, tell us about where you're from.
I'm from down under, Melbourne, Australia.
And when did you come to America?
About 3 years ago.
And how you faring it?
I'm faring it good.
I'm trying to pick up on your lingo. I'm sorry. So, let me know. Tell everybody when you knew that you wanted to play music.
Well, I was always in love with music, and I grew up on like Madonna, when I was 8 years old, and I started with Madonna and Cyndi Lauper, and my dad would play Bruce Springsteen and shit, and that was pretty crazy. And I remember I had a huge crush on Roxette, but anyway. And I guess, at an early age, I was a language that I understood, and at an early age, too, I really wanted to speak it. And so, about age 11, I started writing poetry, and I learned guitar when I was about 13. My uncle made this fucking piece of shit guitar out of balsa wood. It looked like a train wreck, and it was really cool, and I guess it started there.
Well, what brought you eventually to, like, punk music?
Punk rock? I turned 12 in 91, so yes, I'm young, but I turned 12 in 91, and I guess what was blowing up then was probably like Nirvana and Hole, and I remember running through I was in this record store on Brunswick Street in Fitzroy called Polyester Records, and they had this junk bin, and I was going through the records, and there was a CD, and that was the Hole's first record, Pretty on the Inside, and that was just, I took that home, and that was just like, I think I blew my dad's speakers out, but that had such an impact, and I was just so attracted and so absorbed, it totally blew my mind. And I guess then, I got introduced to Discharge and Why. That was my favorite record at an early age, and my best friend's cousin had a collection of like English punk, thrash, like really hardcore stuff, GBH, Exploited, and every, Discharge, Discord, like every diss band that, that could be, I fucking had on tape. And
there was a million of them.
Yeah, there was. I can't even remember it. I had like a billion tapes of that stuff, and it's, I was totally attracted to it because at that age, I guess I was experimenting with sexuality and drugs, and, this punk rock scene in Australia, it was really small, but they would have this annual, like, pub fest thing, go around to every pub in Melbourne, and just by the end of the day, be wasted, but it was just, it was something new and exciting. And
well, what was, were you in any other bands over in Australia?
Yes, I was in a band called Sourpuss, for people.
Whom we played with, Rancid did.
Yeah, we were really lucky we got to play with you guys. Just a all-girl band, I guess, and we thought we were playing really fast, but we really weren't. We couldn't strum that fast. It was really funny. But that was, that was my entrance into, the world of rock and roll and punk rock, and it was a pretty memorable time, a hard time. I was pretty obstreperous and insouciant. I didn't really give a fuck, but I made it through, and that was good for me.
Well, right now, Brody, I want to get into a track off your new record. It's called Idolist, right here on Rancid Radio. Welcome back to Rancid Radio. This is Lars Fredrickson. I got Brody from the Distillers. How you doing, Brody?
I'm doing good.
Well, my next question kind of follows is this. You got Matt on drums, you got Kim on bass, and a new addition I want to talk about a little bit. Actually, let's talk about it right now. When did you add a second guitar player?
Right before we went into West Beach to record the first record for the Distillers, I was looking for a young punk rock kind of rad girl who could play guitar really well, and a friend of ours, Pablo, told me he knew somebody, and she turned out to be perfect. And I saw her. We looked at each other, and it was like love at first sight. And she's from Detroit, and she's a tough little girl, and her name is Casper.
Casper is definitely one of the toughest girls I've ever met. I want to know a little bit about your influences, though.
Influences? God, there's so many.
Well, I know you guys do like a Patti Smith song on the new record, and maybe throw some out, just get familiar.
Okay, Discharge was my first, of course, really big. I love Blondie. And Rancid, of course.
Well, I know this is a tough question, but I mean, you guys play music that's so fucking hard and fast, and I just want to know what maybe, you know, was it the influences that pushed you into that direction, or was it just, you know, stream of conscious?
Well, I guess it, you know, when I was in Sourpuss, we were this all-girl band. We got typecast into the whole riot girl scene, and I felt like I was never really accepted into that whole women's collective. And I had experiences with them, you know, at shows, you know, American female bands came over, and for all their hype and bullshit and, you know, feminist and Nazi bullshit that they spouted, they didn't never give me any encouragement or even say anything to me about it. So I kind of I felt really dissed, and I just decided to go down my own path. And I guess, you know, rock and roll and punk rock is a very, you know, masculine form of, you know, it's really sexual. It's a very masculine sexual energy to it, but it's also very feminine, and I think that's the emotive part of it. You know, it's about expression and getting to say, you know, what you want to say in many different ways. And I guess, you know, from an early age, I was brought up by women, you know, and that's a very nurturing thing, but I didn't have a father. And so I guess, you know, I was my own man from an early age, and, you know, I was just in me. I'm a very masculine person as well as feminine, but, you know, I guess, I don't know, I didn't give a fuck, and I wanted to play just as good as, you know, the bands that I liked, and that was mainly, you know, male bands, and I guess that's how it happened. I love playing really fast music too, you know.
Is there any particular band that you guys like to play with?
We love all the Hellcat bands, you know, Dropkick Murphys, US Bombs, Tiger, I mean, the list goes on, and we have played with those bands, and they're fantastic, and they're hardcore, and they're, you know, great musicians, and great fucking songwriting, and I think that's the main aspect to it, is just, you know, songwriting.
Well, talking about great fucking songwriting, I want to get into some more music right here. This is my personal favorite off the record. I make up my own lyrics, singing along sometimes. This one is The World Comes Tumbling Down, fucking hard, pissed, loud, and proud. The Distillers on Rancid Radio.